Hi everyone, I'm Jeremy Bailey, your Flying Realtor. Welcome back to another episode of Tuesday's Tips. Today is one topic that's near and dear to my heart because I started out my real estate career as an investor. I ended up getting my real estate license afterwards. So I practice what I preach, and today we're going to talk about a little bit of house hacking and how you can purchase your first investment property and not put a lot of money down. And it comes down to order of operations. So let's jump on over to the studio where Suzanne Caldeira from Guaranteed Rate Mortgage is there with us to see what these tips are and how to do it. Thank you, Suzanne, for coming on for another episode of Tuesday's Tips. Today is one of my favorite topics because I am one who always practice what I preaches. It started from my love of Monopoly when I was a kid. I still love Monopoly. My children love Monopoly. And it's investment properties and cash flow and things like that. And I know traditionally many of us, myself included, my first property was the single family home that my wife and I bought. And then we bought another one, sold that, bought another one. Then we started looking at investment properties. So we did it what I think some would call it the traditional way. However, the money that we needed to put out of pocket was a lot greater than if we did it another way, and that's purchase the investment property first to live in, and then purchase your single family dream house or final home after the fact. So I'm going to toss it over to you, and can you kind of explain a little bit on how that saves us money and how it makes more sense to do it with the investment property first and then buy your single family house later?
Yeah, for sure, Jeremy. This is a favorite of mine when I have someone looking at a 2 or a 3 or a 4 family to buy, because once they get it and the light bulb goes off, I see it. I see it when I'm doing the Zoom with them. So I'm going to give you an example of buying that first property as you're going to live in it and you're truly going to live in it, and doing an FHA loan. So with an FHA loan, you can do as little as a 3.5% down payment. So you start off with your multifamily, and let's not do pie in the sky numbers. Let's just do very basic numbers. So this is an example that I'll give if somebody's looking at a 2 family, and I'll say, okay, let's say for 5 years you save half the rent. Let's say you're getting $1,000 in rent, but maybe 2 out of those 5 years really aren't good. But all right, let me take a step back. But maybe 2 out of those 5 years really aren't good. You got to put some repairs in. Maybe there was some vacancy. Maybe your tenant got laid off, so you let them have a few free months. But 3 out of the 5 years, you've been able to save $500 a month, which is half the rent. So I'm going to take 500 times 36 months. But remember, this is a 5-year example. At the end of 5 years, you've got $18,000 that you've been able to put away. Now, let's say that this was longer than that. Let's say that it was 10 years. So you lived in this multifamily for 10 years. And let's say that, I don't know, 7 out of the 10 years were good. No, you know what? Let me not even go that well. Let's say 6 out of the 10 years were good. All right. So I'm going to go 500 times 72 months. That's $36,000 that you've been able to put away. Now, chances are it might be a higher rent, or maybe my example is too conservative. But I like to do worst case for people, because worst case sometimes can be reality, and it's always better to plan for the worst. And if it ends up being the best, awesome. But this is one of the great ways where you can build up either your next down payment, or just build up your next down payment, because on the next house, all you need on the next house is a 5% down payment. So a 5% down payment you're able to do. One of the very big misconceptions that we hear a lot is that, oh, I need 20% down because I'm not a first-time home buyer. I don't know who came up with that, but that is so wrong, and it's not accurate information.
I think it comes from the same people who give advice about how being a landlord is difficult and all tenants are awful and you should never buy investment properties. The people who have never actually gotten a mortgage or have never actually had tenants. All the advice, I think that advice comes from the same pool of people. But anyway, I digress. So basically what you're saying, Suzanne, is if we bought the investment property first, we could use, let's say, an FHA product, which is 3.5% down to purchase your owner-occupied investment property, 2, 3, or 4 units. Then at some point down the road, when you want to move out and purchase a single-family home to live in, you could purchase that with as little as 5% down.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Whereas the flip side, let's say you bought your single family home first, there are some products where maybe you could purchase it with as little as 3% down. However, now when you've saved up some money and you want to go explore purchasing your first investment property, you're going to need 25% down to purchase that investment property.
You're correct, Jeremy. You're really correct. Yeah, it's, when you look at that and you look at the numbers that you worked up, it's completely a no-brainer. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's the difference with, let's say we use a $350,000 purchase price for every scenario, the multifamily and the single family. In the case of buying the investment property first and then purchasing the single family home later, you're only into it for maybe $30,000 in down payments for 2 properties. Where on the flip side, same purchase prices of $350,000 a piece. If you purchase your single family home first, then the investment property second, it's going to cost you close to $100,000 in down payment purchase money. So you're talking about the difference of $70,000. I mean, that's a huge difference for getting into a couple of properties. So it's just, to me, it's a no-brainer. I wish I would have known that when I was younger.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I know I put out there that, hey, I didn't enjoy being a landlord. I enjoyed telling people about it. I don't have the patience for it. It's exciting to see. It's exciting to see what people can do. Mm-hmm. And then when you're helping them the second or the third time, and they've been able to accumulate this house wealth, or have the ability to have something that they can sell, mm-hmm. Even if they're not good savers. And hey, now it's time for your kid to go to school. Hey, why don't we sell that 2 or that 3 family? Yeah. We're ready. Yeah. And so that's what it does, and that's why real estate is such a great asset, mm-hmm. For the average consumer. It really, really is.
I couldn't agree more, and obviously we're biased, we're in the industry, but before I ever became a realtor, I was a real estate investor. So I practice what I preach. I love real estate as a wealth building tool.
Yeah, and I think that's what gives you the advantage when you're working with clients, is that you can explain this to them and you're living it. The thing with, you got to be careful. Like a lot of times it's people projecting their fears onto you. Like, oh, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't do this. Why don't you look at who you're getting the advice from? Mm-hmm. Do they own their home? Do they own any investment properties? What do they do for a living? If they're not living it, breathing it, I really wouldn't take advice from them. Now, if you have an uncle who's an investor and he owns 15 properties, he can bring something to the table. Yeah. And he can definitely bring you up to speed with his knowledge and his guidance. But Jeremy, I love your example of what you said. Those people, don't listen to them. They're just projecting their fears onto you.
If I listened to them, I wouldn't be where I am today. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Tuesday's Tips. I know I always love talking about investment properties because I am an investor as well. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at any time, text, email, smoke signal, however it is you want to communicate with me, and I'll get those answers for you and I'll help you out any way that I can. Remember, I'm Jeremy Bailey, your Flying Realtor. Remember to keep your wings level and I get to fly.